5 years, I paid off over $18 million in credit card debt simply by following that process.
That's amazing. That's definitely amazing.
It's as I said, because I've been doing this for so long, you basically develop these processes, that help you explain things to people so that they understand, okay, this is the step I'm up to, I need to do this first. And then what do I need to do to move the next step? And it just makes it so much simpler. So yeah, go for it.
Welcome everybody back to another exciting show, the About That Wallet podcast, where we help the sandwich generation build strong financial habits so that they can talk about money, spend money, and enjoy their money with confidence. Today, I have an awesome person who has been doing such an amazing job when it comes to understanding your finances and allowing you to have the freedom to even start looking into starting a business. The reason why I have this amazing person on is because I really think this will be a great way to kind of segue some of your free time and actually help bring your child into the world of entrepreneurship. Even though you can be the first one to break that generational curse, or I guess you could say challenge of not having or even owning a business, I think this episode is going to be for you. And the person I want to have on today is Phil. How you doing today, Phil?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Anthony. Very excited to be here, mate. Very excited. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no problem. And to make sure I got your last name right, is McGilray? McGilray. You're pretty close. Okay. Well done, mate. It's not easy. Okay, right. Thank you for allowing me to correct me on that, because it's so cool to actually meet somebody from internationally to come on the show, because you get a different view of finances. But I like your story and where you're coming from, because it shows that finances is global, and the way how we approach 100%. Finances is such a way of life, if that makes sense. So can you tell us a little bit about, why grandma's jars?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay. Well, I was one of the lucky ones. So when I was 18 years old, I went and spent a year in the UK. So I'm currently in Australia. I went and spent a year in the UK. My English grandma lived over there. I was an adventure training instructor for a year at this beautiful place called Fairthorne Manor in the south of England. And we got paid the princely sum of £15 a week, which isn't a lot of money, although they did look after all my food and accommodation. So I can't complain. It was one of the best years of my life. But getting by on £15 was not easy. And so my English grandma, I went to visit her. It was about a 3-hour train ride over to see my English grandma. And she taught me how to budget using physical glass jars and physical money, which I don't know whether your audience will be able to see it, but on the shelf there behind me, I have the glass jars. And she literally had these glass jars sitting in the cupboard above her stovetop. She would go every month, she would walk around to the post office, pick up her pension in cash, because these are the days for internet banking.
Right.
She would walk home, and she took down the jars, and she knew exactly how much she needed to put in each jar. So like one jar was electricity, and another jar was housekeeping, and another jar was for the gas or the milkman, or I can't remember what the other ones were now. But she had these glass jars, and she knew exactly how much she needed to put into those jars so that when those expenses turned up, the money was just there ready to go. And as a result of that, my grandma, despite the fact my granddad died at a fairly young age, my grandma was able to pay off the home and actually die a fairly wealthy woman, because she'd invested what she didn't need to put in the jars, what was left over after she'd filled up the jars, she was able to take and put into mutual funds and those sorts of things. So it was a very, very simple strategy that she taught me. I came home from the UK after a year, started teaching all my friends. The grandma's jars, the glass jars, went from glass jars to envelopes to paper budgets to Excel spreadsheets, and then eventually we've got our own apps and software and those sort of things these days. So yeah, that's the story.
Nice, because that's one of the things that I guess in this digital realm we lose that tactile feature of finances.
Yeah.
And because we don't feel like, we're spending it, it's just kind of like, okay, well, just go to this plastic thing. I'll just swipe and keep going.
Yeah.
How do we bring back almost that, as you could say, that extra layer of tension before we spend?
It's a really good question. And I mean, really, I do think just having a budget that allows you to stay aware of where you're up to. So, with grandma, it was pretty simple. If there was money left in the jar, she could spend it. If there wasn't, she couldn't. And so having an app that actually, having an app that gives you that instant feedback. So I can see how much I got in my jar. I record my expense, I enter it into my jar, and then I can see, on my phone app that it's now gone down and I've only got a little bit left. And so I think having that constant feedback, like the biggest problem that I see is people just have a lack of awareness of how much all those little bits of spending actually add up to. So having some sort of way of just giving you that feedback is really important. Interestingly, though, I spent 4 months traveling around the world, learning about all the different financial literacy, leading practices, what works, what doesn't, and those sort of things. And I still believe that with kids, even though it's not a big part of our society today, but whilst we've still got it, having cash to teach kids about money is actually really helpful, because little ones are very visual, very tactile. So actually having coins, being able to give them coins, using the 3 glass jars to just help them, here's a little bit of spending money, here's a bit of giving money, and here's a bit of, investing money. Like having those is actually still very, very helpful for people, for little ones when we're teaching our kids about money. So I still like that. Whilst we still have cash, I encourage parents still to use it. But if we're adults, of course, we don't do that. But having some kind of budgeting system that actually gives you that awareness of, I've just spent money and now I've got less to spend tomorrow, is really important.
And how do we translate that style into doing our own business? So somebody wanted to start a business.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing with businesses, and I'll just give you a quick story about this, is I was, just so we can translate why I'm looking at business now, is I was a partner in Australia's leading stockbroking financial planning firm. I'd been financial coach for 35 years, became a financial advisor about 10 years into that journey. And then realized that wasn't where God wanted me to be, or not at that point in time. So he really called me to leave that. Just as I got to the point where I was, doing very, very well financially from it, said, no, I want you to leave this and focus on financial literacy and financial education. And so I stepped out of that into my own world of building my own business and, into that entrepreneurial world, and realized that most entrepreneurs have no idea how to manage their finances. And they don't, and because they've never been taught the basics either. And you think, well, if I've not been taught the basics of personal finance, then I certainly haven't been taught the basics of business finance. And so it just becomes a really, you're pushing it uphill as an entrepreneur to make things work financially. So that's why I got in the entrepreneurial world. And then you just start to learn more and more about and I've been sort of in that entrepreneurial world for about 10 years now, and working with entrepreneurs of all shapes and sizes. And you get to learn what works and what doesn't, because you get to see under the hood of, look, this business might look brilliant on social media, but is it in reality actually any good? And so what that's allowed me to do is adapt grandma's principles to business. And not coming from an accounting background, coming from more a cash flow background, and helping people build successful businesses. And certainly, there are. It's not like you and I both know, because we've been doing it for a long time. Finances aren't difficult when you take all the. Again, we have this financial overwhelm in our heads. We have this belief in our heads about how hard finance is because we've never been taught it. But in reality, the basics are super, super simple. Spend less than you earn. Make sure you've got money set aside for your known expenses. Make sure you've got money set aside for the unexpected expenses, and then invest. And that it's really not much harder than that. And I think it's the same thing with business finances. So that's, but we lose it. I think the biggest problem with entrepreneurial finances is we teach the money within our business, treat the money within our business like it's monopoly money, and so we spend it as if it's someone else's money almost. Whereas every dollar we spend in our business is a dollar we don't get to take home. So it's important that we have some kind of budgeting system or money management system that we have within our business. And that's what I spend a lot of time doing these days.
So what is the underlying thing that you found the most helpful for beginner businesses when they get started?
The simple thing is just to know your numbers, not to hide from them, but to know them. So again, not all that different to our personal finance, but with businesses, there's really 5 numbers that they need to know. The first number is, well, what was my revenue for the month? So that's the easy one. What did I bring in as a business? That's one we all like to brag about. But what did I bring in for my business? The second thing is then, well, what do I need to pay myself as a salary so that this business is sustainable? So that comes back to, personal finances in terms of, well, what are all my expenses and what do I need to pay myself from this business? That's the second thing. And, so when we're looking at it on a month-to-month basis, what did I actually pay myself this month? But then the third thing is knowing what all of your expenses are. And this isn't just having some sort of P&L, so a profit and loss, which, the accountants always talk about, because believe it or not, the P&L actually misses out certain expenses that we have. It doesn't include them because they're included elsewhere in the whole accounting world. So we have so really it comes down to looking at your bank account, going, what was my income? What did I pay myself as a salary? What were all my expenses? And then seeing, okay, if I take my expenses away from my income, how much have I actually made? And then how much tax do I need to put aside? So it's just a percentage. Let's say it's 22% of that. We put that aside, and then we get to see, what do I really get to keep? So that's it. Like if entrepreneurs, if I was God of the entrepreneurial world, I would make it mandatory that every entrepreneur just track those 5 things. If they could just do that, then what would happen is they then have this, they can clearly see then a clarity on, okay, I actually lost money this month, but what are the things that I can do to try and make more money next month? And it's interesting, when you can visually see it, you can start to ask yourself all the questions, because often it's not just about, I've got to sell more stuff. It's often about, well, actually, am I selling that stuff at a profit in the first place? And if not, what do I need to do about it? So when you've got clarity on those 5 or 6 numbers, and I say 6 because if you're a product-based business, like you're selling widgets, then you've got to factor in the cost of buying those widgets in the first place, and then shipping them to you and then shipping them back out again, and that's called cost of goods sold. So sometimes you break your expenses up into, sorry, I'm getting into the deep weeds
That's
now,
okay.
but break it up into the cost of getting that thing in the first place and then your overheads. So really keep it simple. What was my revenue? What did I pay myself salary? What were all my expenses? What should I put aside for tax? What have I actually got left? That if you could just do that and learn from what that's telling you, you're already ahead of sort of 90% of the entrepreneurial world.
What are your thoughts on tariffs and businesses? Has that changed a little bit in the conversation that you're having with other entrepreneurs?
Not yet, because we haven't actually seen the full effect of that yet. And because, and obviously I'm from Australia, so I'm completely apolitical when it comes to, US politics and those sort of things.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to affect some businesses more than others. So, for instance, Donald Trump just recently said that Australian steel and aluminium exports, so our exports to you, there'll be an extra 50% tariff on top of that. And of course, that affects businesses. It affects their profitability, but it sort of affects their profitability in a big way. And so it needs to be factored in, because it's really just, and especially on cost of goods sold. So again, I don't like using accounting terminology. I'm not from an accounting background, but when we're buying, like if we were buying, so let's say we're selling railway lines or something like that, well, it's going to cost us more to actually buy the steel for those railways in the first place. So I have to factor that into my expenses and work out, or how am I going to be profitable with cost going up that much? Am I going to have to just charge more? So you do need to factor tariffs in, because it will affect the profitability of your business. And somewhere, if you're paying more for that product, then you're going to have to either reduce your expenses or increase what you charge to sort of factor that into the equation.
That makes sense. And but what got you into finance in the first place? Besides, I mean, we know we talked about the grandma's jars, but what was that next? You're like, okay, I see what grandma was doing, but what is it? What else can I do? Can I take this to the next level? What was it for you?
Well, it was interesting. I came back from the UK. I was only 19 years old when I came back from the UK. And one of my friends, the only friend I had that actually knew my grandma in England, he got himself into financial trouble just coming out of university. Not severe financial trouble. He finished the first year of his job, and he had, he earned like $45,000 as a civil engineer. He came out of that job after his first year, and he'd spent all of that $45,000 he'd earned, and he had $5,000 in credit card debt. And he said, "Oh my gosh," he said, "Phil, you were telling me about your grandma and budgeting system. Can you teach me how to do this?" And so I taught him how to do it, helped him get out of debt, helped him save money. And then I had friends from church who were asking me how to do it. And I just loved it because it was all so obvious to me. And so I started teaching more and more and more people. And so I was actually an occupational therapist when I first came out of university. That's where I studied to be. Yeah. But on the side, I was teaching people how to budget and save money and get out of debt and all those sorts of things. And I'd worked with literally hundreds of different families and couples, and then I got invited to speak at churches and so on. And then one person I came up to in a church, he was actually a financial advisor, and he said to me, "Oh, would you be interested? I'm looking for a cadet financial advisor. Would you be interested in?" And I thought, yeah. And I was at this point, crossroads in my occupational therapy career, where it was like, not really enjoying what I'm doing, but I love the budgeting and the money management, all that sort of stuff. So it was perfect. It was God's timing. And so I had the opportunity to become a financial advisor, and then over the years, just worked my way up, and eventually became, as I said, a partner in Australia's leading stockbroker financial planning firm. So
that's amazing, because because a lot of people who are just looking at it, they was like, man, well, I should get all these certifications. Should I follow people who are giving practical advice? How do you become, I guess you could say, a person of trust and person of credibility? And it's like, well, if you're already proven it to so many people, it almost validates itself at that point. Yeah. Can you talk about like this Thrive financial protocol though?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Thrive financial protocol, like over the years, like because I started off with the absolute basics as an 18-year-old, my whole vision is to help make money simple for people, and to make so that, like we were talking before the show about, how you got started because you just wanted to teach people the absolute basics because you didn't know them yourselves. And so it's trying to simplify it, or take all the clutter and the noise out of, well, how do finances really work, and teach the absolute basics. And so I wanted to do that in the entrepreneurial world as well, with people that are starting out in business. And I'm a big believer that people should try and, if you're wired that way, some people aren't. My wife isn't, but that's great because she balances me out. But many people are. And there are so many different ways to make money these days, that doesn't involve, you being in a 9 to 5. But the Thrive protocol is like, Thrive is actually an acronym for, T is for transparency. The first thing that we need to do, and this is personal finance as well as business finance really, but is get this transparency. Where do I stand financially right now? And this is really scary for some people. This is really, really scary for some people because we're afraid about what we're going to find. We're afraid about what it's really going to look like. But getting that clarity is so important because it gives you a baseline. And not only that, is often with our finances, in the absence of facts, our brain will feed us fear. And so what happens is we start to worry about where we're at financially. We don't know, but we always imagine that it's a lot worse than it really is. And we start to catastrophize about our situation quite easily.
Right.
So thrive, but interestingly, once we actually figure out where we're really at, I hear people say to me, Phil, that was scary to start with, and I've heard this hundreds of times before, but it is so empowering, it is so liberating, it is so freeing, it is so therapeutic, it is so cathartic, because now what I've done is I've found out what the facts are, and I replaced the fear with the facts, and the facts aren't nearly as bad as what I was worried about. And now I can do something about it. So T is about transparency, where I'm at right now, and where do I want to be? That's really important. Getting clarity on what you really want. Because when you get that sort of clarity, then it helps you basically define your journey. This is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. Okay, now we just need to create the journey. And then the H in Thrive is harness. Let's harness your cash flow. Let's put simple systems in within your business so that you can understand where you're at financially and clearly see what you need to do to move from, where I'm at right now to where I want to be. R is for reclaim the joy for what you do. And that is most entrepreneurs, they get into entrepreneurship or their own business because they want to manage their own time. They want to be able to spend time with their families and those sort of things. They want to be able to do something they absolutely love and believe in, and they want to earn more money than they could work for someone else. But when we get into the entrepreneurial world, suddenly it's not as easy as we thought it was. We find ourselves working incredibly long hours, yes. And we're earning a pittance for what we do. We think I'd be better off stacking shelves at the supermarket. And not only that, but I'm actually starting to resent what I'm doing because I'm putting so much time, so much effort, so much money into this, and it's not giving me anything back. You can obviously relate to that, mate.
Yeah, every day I think about it. We're here on the weekend,
yeah. That's right, and that's the thing, and that's what happens in the entrepreneurial world. So my, what I'm trying to do is once we get clarity on where we're at, where we want to be, once we started to harness our cash flow so we can really actually understand it, then what we want to do is go, okay, let's build a cash reserve within this business so I don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, if something unexpected happens, I'm going to be stuffed, We want to be able to pay off debt that we've got within the business so we can free up cash flow. We want to be able to take time off within the business and know that we've got the money there to do it. And so this is about reclaiming our joy and paying ourselves properly. So that's the four key things of reclaim. Then we move into I, which is investing back in the business, investing in ourselves, and investing in others. I'm a huge believer in giving and using the profits and the money that we use to help others. So that's about invest. V is about vision, having some kind of roadmap that actually shows us exactly how we're going to work our way through not just building the business, but then creating the kind of life we want. So I've got a roadmap that I take people through. And then E is about empire. E is about, okay, how do I now take my business success over here and turn it into personal wealth? How do I actually make that transition? And so that's the Thrive. That's the Thrive protocol. That's the process I take all my clients through.
Man, that is amazing. So, I have so many more questions, but I know we're coming up time-wise.
I'll keep going, mate. We're right.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, the next question that I have is about, instead of taking a business, like starting it from scratch, what are your thoughts about buying a business for the people who are just tired of working in their current business and just want to sell it? What are your thoughts on buying versus starting new?
Look, a couple of things. Perfectly good idea. As long as it's a business that firstly, as long as it's a business that is actually cash flow positive, like that is actually making money, like it's been around for a long time, it continues to make lots of money, and you just need to buy it, step in and run it. And as long as it's not dependent on the owner that you're buying it from. Like if it's a brand that is this person is absolutely central to the brand and the success of the business, then it's not going to work if you try and step into their shoes. So as long as if it's a business like running, let's say it's a local grocery store at the corner, and it's a very, very profitable business, the people that own it are retiring and they don't have anyone to hand it to, and you're buying it off them. Yeah, absolutely. And so there's lots of business like that you can buy, but you just got to make sure that you're not buying someone else's problems. The other thing too is the difference between starting your own thing and buying a business is that when you start your own thing, you've obviously started it because you have a real passion, interest, etc. for that business or whatever that business is doing for the community. So you don't want to go necessarily and buy a business that just does nothing for you internally. It's just a job and it just provides money, because it's going to be hard to get your heart into it. But as long as it aligns with your values and your goals in life and those sort of things, then yeah, absolutely, it's a good idea. And as long as it's profitable and you know that it's profitable and you've had the books looked at by someone independent,
That's true.
Then absolutely, it's a good way to do it.
Perfect. I mean, I just wanted to get your take on it. That's all. Because it's so everybody always talk about the easy part, which is just starting something, sell something immediately. But if you just want to take on somebody else's project, like to make it your own, that's all. I just wanted to get your take on it from seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, as long as, again, that's profitable and they're not just selling their problems.
Most of them are, but so we're coming up to the third segment, which is the features. So what habits that you think are essential for entrepreneurs just to kind of build their legacy?
I mean, obviously they have to genuinely care about what they do and make a difference in the lives of others. You know, you need, this is so important, and it's so lost in the entrepreneurial world today, where it can so easily just become all about the bottom line in terms of making money. You want to make a difference in the lives of others, because that's where the greatest joy and fulfillment in making money actually comes from. So that's the first thing that I would say. In terms of the legacy of it, you want to build a business that is, one, could potentially operate without you, ideally, so that it is either sellable or passable on to someone else. So that means that as you're going, deliberately build your systems and processes so that, like, it's hard for entrepreneurs because so often we're visionaries and we like, we like creating new things, but we actually need to slow down and build systems, build processes, build our standard operating procedures and those sort of things, so that anyone can do them and repeat them and get the same results. So that's really important in terms of like legacy, in terms of what you're talking about. So I would say slow down, build the systems, it's the same with the finances. Like whenever I'm working with someone with their finances, our goal is, first one is my income greater than my expenses? That's obvious, but are we doing that consistently? Then what we want to do is build up our operating account so that it's approximately 1.5 to 2 times our monthly operating expenses. Once we've got that, as long as more money is coming in than going out, that pool, that account will gradually fill up and hit that every single month. Then we want to take the overflow and build up our rainy day fund, the unexpected expenses. Once we got the unexpected expenses covered, that account, that should stay full unless we need it for an unexpected expense. And then we can pay off debt. Once we pay off debt, then we can build reserves, which is for life events, not unexpected expenses. And then we can start to invest back in the business. And that's where we're building the base of the business wider so the business can go higher. So actually building a foundation to the business, a financially strong foundation. And the important thing to note here is that the amount of money we have in our reserves account, the amount of money we have in our operating account is a multiple of our business expenses. So what that means is if I take on a new team member and they cost me $3,000 a month, then if I need 1.5 to 2 times my operating expenses in my operating account, then that means I now need $3,000 to $3,500, $4,500, maybe even $6,000 extra sitting in my operating account each month. Same thing with my reserves. If it's 3 times my expenses, then I'm going to need 3 times that salary also added to my reserves. So that just means that you're building financial stability so that as the business grows, you can build the base wider so that you can go higher. So that's, again, being able to hand a business like that over to someone else in good financial shape, that's the way that we do it. And then, of course, making sure that your life's not all about the business. Because, again, what can happen is we can very easily, it's funny, we go into business, as I said before, because I want more time, I want to pay myself more than I could think, someone else, and I want to enjoy what I do because I believe in it. And we forget that so quickly, and it becomes all about the business and making more money, and yet somehow we spend all that money within the business because we're trying to grow it, and none of it actually makes its way out into our personal life so that we can actually start to build wealth outside the business. But there should be money coming out, and we should be investing that into index funds, into property, and all those sorts of things. But we don't do it. And so most entrepreneurs, despite a relatively successful or period to be successful business, are dirt poor outside of the business. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. I see it all the time.
Yeah. I'm sure you do. Yeah, I'm sure you do.
And I want to say thank you for sharing that piece, because it's really good way to kind of lay out. And I never thought about the overflow into the different buckets. That was something I would probably do a deeper dive in on a personal thing. So
Well, just so that you know, this is exactly how I see. Whenever I work with a business client or a personal client, I always visualize their finances like a cascade. And so this is part of my model. I've got not trying to push it on anyone here, but I got a book called The Cash Flow Fix, where I actually talk through this exact model, but I have one for personal finances, one for business finances. And if you think about your income like water in a cascade, and you go, okay, well, my first pool is my operating account. And so if I'm pouring more money into that than I'm taking out in expenses, then that pool should just naturally fill up. And so that's the way we always want to think about it. If it's business finances, we think about that as an operating account. And personal finances, we think about that as, well, how much do I need to cover my budget? And so the goal is, of course, is to get that pool full. That's our first step in the process. And then the overflow comes out, and any overflow comes out and goes down to our rainy day, and then the debt, and then the cash reserve. And then we get to the fun stuff down the bottom, which is, if business, that's growing the business. But if it's personal, that's life goals or investing for the future. Or giving to causes we care about. And so if you always think about that, like whenever I sit down with a new client, whether they're a personal client or a business client, I'm thinking through, is their income greater than their expenses? If not, we need to fix that. Second thing is, do they have enough money set aside to cover their known expenses as they turn up? If not, that's our first step to deal with the money that we're coming in. If they've got that, then do they have a rainy day fund for the unexpected? That's one that people often miss. If they don't, and this is super important, because often people with credit card debt, personal loans, those things, the first thing that they want to do when they get paid is, I cover my immediate expenses, and then anything else goes off my credit card. And, I pat myself on the back, go, well done, Phil, you paid your credit card down. But then something unexpected comes up, or a big bill or something like that, and go, now I need to put it back on the credit card, and I'm stuck in this cycle. And so by actually going, deal with the income greater than expenses. Is my income greater than expenses? Have I got enough set aside for my known expenses? Have I got enough set aside for my unknown expenses with my rainy day fund? At that point, I've broken the paycheck cycle. I've also broken the need to actually have to use a credit card. So what that means is that every dollar I then pay off my personal debt stays off my personal debt, because I've got everything else covered up above. And my clients in the last 5 years have paid off over $18 million in credit card debt simply by following that process.
That's amazing. That's definitely amazing. I mean, congrats to you and your process. I love it. That is something that I never looked at it that way, but I guess we all do. We both pretty much do the same thing for our clients. And I like your visual aspect of it. I'm definitely going to have to try that one, if you don't mind me stealing it.
No, mate, go for it. It helps people, and it's as I said, because I've been doing this for so long, you basically develop these processes, that help you explain things to people so that they understand. Oh, okay, this is the step I'm up to. I need to do this first, and then what do I need to do to move the next step? And it just makes it so much simpler. So yeah, go for it.
Thanks. You ready for the final 4 questions?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
let's go for it.
Cool. So, question number 1, what does wealth mean to you?
Wealth means to me the opportunity to make a difference. I'm not a big believer in wealth for wealth's sake. And I know a lot of people are, but, having worked with, like when I was my stockbroking firm, I had clients that were worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. And they were just as unhappy as the next person. In some cases, they were, more so unhappy. And the thing is too, and the sad thing was, I saw a lot of my clients get very wealthy, and then, they pass on, and then they give it to their kids, and the kids just blow it. And so wealth to me is the opportunity to make a difference, and to be able to obviously support my family and to live, a happy, comfortable, fulfilled life. But the greatest joy for us, and I truly believe this, the greatest joy in having money is using it to change the lives of others. Over the years, we've been able to give, I haven't added it all up, but probably at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it'd be probably millions to causes we care about. And we've been to, Cambodia and visited the water and sanitation projects and those sorts of things. And, one of my biggest dreams is actually to be able to, of the entrepreneurs that I work with, or the families that I work with, is to get them to the point where they go, well, let's go with Phil to one of these projects and actually let's help build houses and do things. And so that they get an experience of a third world country, but also the difference we can make with relatively small amounts of money. So that's what it means for me. I'm not a big believer in accumulating for the sake of accumulating.
Yeah, we might have to catch up offline to do that, because I would actually like to be part of that project as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please contact. Let's have a chat about it at some point. Yep.
Yeah. Number 2, what was your worst money mistake?
Oh, mate. There are so many. There are so many. And can I say, to anyone listening to this, one of the reasons money is such a big taboo topic in our society is because we walk around thinking that everyone else has got themselves sorted out when it comes to money. And we think we're the only one that's got these money problems, or that we don't know how to do it, and we've made all these stupid mistakes. And we're embarrassed, we're ashamed, we're fearful and anxious. And then because of that, we don't want to talk to anyone about it. Please let me tell you, and again, this is 35 years plus of experience, but there was something I was going to say with the 10 there. 35 years experience, and I can tell you, everyone has made stupid mistakes with their money. And they're not stupid because I say that, I probably shouldn't use the word stupid. They're mistakes because we don't know any better. No one else has taught us any better. So I have made mistakes with 6 figures behind it on at least 3 occasions. So, okay. So big mistakes. Investment mistakes. Like I've made a couple of really big investment mistakes that are, and some of it was just, believe it or not, some of it was just immaturity and greed, trying to get in on a really good opportunity that wasn't. Often the financial institutions that engineer these products, like we had this big investment firm here in Australia, right before the global recession back in 2009, that had engineered this product so that even if the market was a bit like selling the Titanic, I think they said that even if the markets were really, really dump, you would still do okay. And we built all these things into the product so that it was financially engineered so that it couldn't fail. Then the financial crisis hit and it failed in a big, spectacular way. It wasn't supposed to sink, but it did. So, I think, and every time, my belief is every time we either chase the get rich quick, the dream, or we chase something that has been financially engineered and structured to be the perfect product, you're going to lose money. I think every time you move away from the basics of simple, index funds, you're going to get yourself, I really believe the index funds are the way. But every time you try something that looks like it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Been there. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right, yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
We might have to put a whole other episode. Like I might have to start taking that question out and make that like the middle question, because this one gets the most, I guess you could say, energy. And I really think, because we have so many of them to go through, but
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Exactly right. I could give you a list as long as my arm of mistakes that I've made. And so, yeah, for everyone out there, even the financial experts actually make mistakes, but they just make them bigger. So please don't worry about yours.
Okay, number 3. Is there a book that inspired your journey or changed your perspective?
Is there a book that inspired? I mean, obviously, I love Dave Ramsey's books. I was fortunate when I was over there in my Winston Churchill Fellowship to spend some time with Dave Ramsey and some of his team a few years back there. I love what they do. I absolutely love what they do. I did start, though, before Dave Ramsey, I think, from memory. So, mind you, he's obviously done a brilliant job of marketing himself and making a difference to the world. The book that I've read more recently, and I'd encourage everyone to have a read of it, it's called The Psychology of Money.
Great book. Yeah.
A brilliant book, like in terms of just breaking the basics down. Like I really love this book because unlike there's a lot of books out there that talk about that are very hypey and very much the influencer age type books, and I'm not a big fan of them. But this book talks so clearly about just the mistakes and the thinking and just the mistakes we fall into on a day-to-day basis and how to actually recognize them for what they are so that you can avoid them. And at the heart of it is such a simple message, spend less than you earn and invest wisely. Like it's not rocket science. So yeah, a fantastic book. I'd encourage anyone to have a read of it.
And if a book doesn't talk about those two things, it's not a financial book. So
no, that's right. No, that's exactly right. Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about his book is that he didn't do a woman's perspective. He only talked about from the male side of the house. So if there's a lady listening right now, if you think you can write from a woman's perspective, I think that would actually be a really great opportunity. Just saying. Number 4, what is your favorite dish to make?
I'm a real sweet tooth, so I know you're probably talking about mate. I mean, I love pizza, okay, but I'm a real sweet tooth. So actually, chocolate pudding is my favorite. My favorite dish to make. Yes, I love my chocolate, and I do a lot of running. So I think I run so that I can eat these days. I think that's how it works. But yeah, chocolate pudding. But like any kind of pizza, pretty much. And I know here in Australia, we have influences from all over the world. So we don't really have anything that's typical Australian other than just the barbecue. But yeah, pizza would be it for me.
Nice. So this is going to be the last question of the show, which is, where could people find out more about you?
Well, depends. If they're looking at personal finances, then I have grandmasjars.com. Which is like grandma's jars, as in glass jars. That's where I have all my personal finance stuff. If it's business finance, then it's philmcgilray.com, and I assume they'll be in the show notes because I know the spelling of that's a bit wiggly. But philmcgilray.com from a business perspective.
Oh, perfect. And Phil, thank you so much for your insight, giving us the Thrive Protocol understanding, and really having us understand the pure basics of from personal and business side of the house. So if you're listening to this and you think that you want to take action today, please go ahead on and save this episode, share it with somebody that you want to start a business with. I think this will be a great opportunity for you all to take yourself to that next level. And by all means, y'all be safe. Be out.